Welcome to Meeple Mentor. I'm Jared, and we're about to play Pioneer Days. Let's take a look, I'll show you how. Feel free to pause the video as needed to follow along with your copy of the game. Make sure to like and subscribe below the video, it helps a lot. In Pioneer Days, you'll be leading your own wagon train on the Oregon Trail, stopping at towns along the way to complete favors. Do your best to collect cattle, townsfolk, equipment, and gold over the course of 4 weeks. And it wouldn't be an Oregon Trail game without disasters. Watch out and prepare as best you can for incoming storms, raids, famines, and disease. Maybe dysentery? Pioneer Days is a colorful dice drafting game that plays quicker than you'd expect while offering plenty of strategic choices. The winner is the one with the most victory points earned from a variety of things like gold nuggets, cattle, favors, and townsfolk cards. First, to set up the game, place the main board and scoreboard in the center of the table. Assign everybody a wagon color and place their wagon tokens near the scoreboard. Randomly determine the first player and give them the first player token. I printed out some reference wagons matching the colors of the wagons in the game, which can sit in front of the player as a reminder of which color they are on the scoreboard. Mix the equipment tiles face down and make a stack on the general store area of the board. Turn one face up, +1 for each player, which will form the available equipment for the first round. Sort the different tokens into like piles. There are cattle, medicine, wood, damage, silver, and favors. Put all the gold tokens in the gold bag. Place the 4 disaster markers on the first space of their disaster track on the main board. There are 5 sets of dice, with a yellow, green, blue, red, and black die making up a set. Put 1 set of dice per player in the black bag, plus 1 set. So, a 3-player game has 4 sets of dice, 20 dice in the bag. Any unused dice should be put back in the box. The wagon tiles are double-sided. Just place them in a stack of 2 nearby. Sort the townsfolk cards by letter. There are 5 sets, lettered A, B, C, D, and E. Choose 2 sets to use this game and shuffle them together. The rulebook recommends to use sets A and B for your first game. Set this deck here by the board. Then, deal out 6 face-up townsfolk cards here under each icon. Take the town cards and shuffle them up. Deal 9 face down to this space on the board. The rest can go back to the box. Reveal the top 2 town cards here, representing the first town you'll come to. These are the player boards, with variable abilities. Shuffle them and deal 2 to each player. Each player should choose one of them to use, discarding the other. One side of the player boards has identical abilities to the other boards, and the other side has unique abilities. Choose whichever one you want. The rulebook recommends for your first game for everyone to have the same standard abilities. Each player board shows the starting resources you should collect. Take whatever is shown from the supply. Any of the equipment, wood, medicine, or gold you collect must be placed on empty spaces of a wagon tile. You are allowed to store 2 medicine together and 2 wood together in a single space. They may not be stored together on the same space unless an ability says so explicitly. Gold tokens should be kept face down, hidden from other players, but you're allowed to see them anytime. All resources and tokens in the game are meant to be unlimited, so if you run out, use something for extras. The game takes place over 4 rounds, or weeks. Each week of the game takes place over 5 days. During each week, players will all have 1 turn per day, where they get to choose 1 die and use it as they wish. There's a chance at the end of each day for a disaster to occur. Then, at the end of each week, players will each have the opportunity to satisfy as many town cards as they can to earn favor tokens. After the 4th week, resolve any final disasters and proceed to scoring. All scoring during the game is kept track with players' wagon scoring tokens on the scoreboard. I'll cover how the beginning of a week takes place, though you can skip this for the first round since you're already set up. First, place the dice back in the black bag according to player count. If you follow the setup instructions, you've already done this for the first round. Then, discard the 2 face-up town cards from the previous week. Reveal the next 2 town cards. In the final week of the game, turn up all 3 remaining town cards. All of them will be available. Discard any equipment tokens still in the general store back to the box. Draw a new set of equipment tiles from the face-down stack, 1 per player, plus 1. If the stack of equipment tiles runs out, shuffle the discarded ones and form a new stack. Then, discard any townsfolk cards still face up under the board. Deal 6 new ones face up in their place. Now, a single round is played out, which the game refers to as a day. The start player randomly draws a number of dice from the black bag equal to 1 plus the number of players, and rolls all of them to form the collective dice pool. Starting with the first player and going clockwise, each player chooses a die from the dice pool. Based on the icon chosen, certain equipment or townsfolk may immediately trigger benefits. They may then use that die in one of several ways, which I'll go into in a bit. After using the die, place the die on the matching colored space on the scoreboard. After everyone's taken a turn like this, the last remaining die will advance the disaster track. The color of the remaining die determines which disaster track advances 1 space to the right. If a black die remained, all of the disaster tracks advance 1 each. There are 4 disaster spaces on the track. If any disc hits the 4th space, that disaster is triggered. If more than 1 triggered, resolve them in order from top to bottom. I'll explain more on the disaster effects later. After resolving a disaster, move its disc back to the 1st space of its track. Now pass the first player token clockwise and begin a new day. The game proceeds day after day like this until the dice bag is empty, indicating the 5th and last day of the week. The final day of the week is the one where the dice bag is emptied. After all players' turns on this day, proceed to these steps to end the week. First, every player should look at their townsfolk cards and resolve any effects that occur at the end of the week. Then, all players score 1 victory point for every cattle token in their possession. These are not discarded after scoring. Finally, each player is allowed to turn in resources to complete each town card's requirements, earning the favor tokens stated on the card. All spent resources get put back in the supply. Each player can earn favor tokens by doing this once for each town card. A player can choose to resolve the town cards in whatever order they choose, and so may use gains from one town to satisfy another. Each favor is worth 2 victory points at the end of the game. Favor tokens are collected, but don't have to be stored on a wagon. If the request on a town card is a wagon, then discard the wagon tile and redistribute all items on it to other owned wagons. Any items that cannot be placed on other wagons must be discarded. Only wagons that are not damaged may be used to satisfy a town card. After dealing with the town cards, continue back to the start of the week phase. When a player chooses a die, they may use it in one of 3 ways: collect income, take a townsfolk card, or use it for its action. When first taking the die, you may also trigger any equipment or townsfolk that have that icon on them. If you don't like the options of available dice, you may spend $3 to change the die face to any face you like. However, you may not use this method to trigger the equipment and townsfolk. The main board shows 6 icons matching the 6 icons on each die. These spaces correspond to a silver amount and a townsfolk card underneath. If taking the die for income, look at the amount shown next to the icon. Take that amount of silver from the supply, then place the used die on the matching color space under the scoreboard. You may instead use the die to take the townsfolk underneath the matching icon space. Townsfolk are kept in front of you face up. They may have immediate effects, triggered effects, or ongoing effects. Resolve any immediate effects when you gain the card. Follow the text on the townsfolk card to resolve the other effects. Each townsfolk still in your wagon train at the end of the game will score you points depending on their individual scoring condition. For example, this one will give you 1 victory point for each gold token in your wagons. It's possible to lose townsfolk to disease. Once you've taken and resolved the townsfolk card, place the die on its matching color space. You may instead use the chosen die for its action shown. Each icon represents a different action you could take. The pickaxe icon is mine. You get to draw 1 gold token from the gold bag and store it face down in one of your wagons. Each token will display 1, 2, or 3 gold nuggets. At the end of the game, you'll get a victory point for each gold nugget you have. If you ever have to discard gold tokens from your wagon for any reason, they go back into the gold bag. This die face says Equip and allows you to take any one available equipment tile from the general store. These must be stored on an empty wagon space. Everyone's player board describes in detail what each equipment is and what it does for you. I won't go into detail here. Check page 6 of the rulebook for more information. Some of these equipment tiles are triggered whenever you choose a die from the dice pool that matches its icon in the corner. For example, if you had this bandage equipment in a wagon space and you were to take a die showing the cattle icon, you would trigger its effects and take 1 medicine. All townsfolk and equipment tiles that have the die's icon on it can trigger 1 at a time. Remember, this happens as soon as you take the die, but before using the die for its intended purpose. It's an additional benefit. The cattle icon action allows you to take 1 cattle token from the supply and add it to your own. These can sit near your board and do not take up a space in a wagon. The wood icon action lets you take 1 wood token from the supply and place it somewhere in your wagons. Each wagon space may hold 2 wood at a time. The medicine icon action allows you to take 1 medicine token and store it on a space in your wagon. Each wagon space may hold 2 medicine at a time. You may rearrange items in your wagon at any time. When taking resources such as equipment, gold, wood, or medicine, if there are not enough spaces in your wagon, you may still take them when earned. However, if any items can't be placed in a valid wagon spot by the end of your turn, then they must be discarded. Remember, cattle, townsfolk cards, favors, and coins don't take up space in wagons. The Joker icon means it's wild. Choosing this action means you can take any of the main actions of your choice: mine, equip, cattle, wood, or medicine. You may not use it to collect income or townsfolk from a different icon space. In addition, anytime during your turn, you may spend $5 to add a small wagon to your wagon train, or $8 to add a large wagon. You may buy and have as many as you can afford. There are 4 kinds of disasters that can trigger during the game: storms, raid, famine, and disease. Anytime a disaster marker reaches its 4th space on the track, that disaster will trigger. Again, if multiple discs move up in the same turn, they are resolved from top to bottom. Some of the disasters require a payment. This is not optional. If a player has the resource to pay, they must pay it. When storms happen, each player must pay 1 wood for each wagon they own. If they cannot, they must take a damage token and cover up 2 of that wagon's spaces. You may not store items on these spaces anymore. You may rearrange items on your wagons before placing the damage token. However, if any tokens can no longer fit in your wagons, they must be discarded. Damage tokens are worth -2 victory points at the end of the game. If a raid is triggered, everyone must discard half of their silver coins back to the supply, rounded up. A famine will affect your cattle. For each cattle you own, you must pay $1. If any are not paid for, they must be discarded. The disease disaster affects everyone's townsfolk cards. For each townsfolk you have, you must pay 1 medicine token to keep it. Otherwise, it's discarded. After the 4th and final week of the game, each disaster track advances by 1 automatically. This happens before resolving townsfolk, scoring cattle, or satisfying the town cards. Any discs that hit the 4th space of their track will trigger their disaster. Remember to resolve disasters from top to bottom. After the disasters, continue with normal end of week scoring. First, resolve card effects from townsfolk that happen at the end of the week. Second, gain a victory point for each cattle that you still have. Then, each player may satisfy the town cards one time each. In this final round, 3 town cards will be face up, instead of just the 2. Any and all you can fulfill may be done in any order. After this, proceed to final scoring. Move your wagon marker on the scoring track for each victory point earned. Each player reveals any gold tokens on their wagons. You gain 1 victory point for each nugget shown. Then count your favor tokens. Each favor is worth 2 victory points. Whoever has the most favor tokens gains 5 victory points. Tied players each gain the 5 points. Check each scoring condition of your townsfolk cards and gain victory points as described for each one. Lose 2 victory points for each damage token on your wagons. Once your score goes above 50, flip over your wagon marker to the plus 50 side and continue counting your points from the beginning of the score track. The player with the most points wins the game. Ties are broken by having the most money. Otherwise, ties share the victory. Keep the rulebook handy and check BoardGameGeek.com for FAQs and extra content. Check the video description for links to Big Viking Mats, Board Game Geek, Top Shelf Gamer for token upgrades, SleeveKings.com for a 10% off coupon on card sleeves, and Mr. Meeple t-shirts for cool board gaming shirts. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you found this teaching helpful. Stick around to watch another Learn to Play video. And remember, teach when you can, but always be learning. See you next time.